In a world populated by dinosaurs, a customer calls for a waiter, ordering a couple of local dishes. The food arrives. The patrons happily munch away, agreeing that this inn has the best food around and is worth traveling for. But one mysterious traveler in a straw hat remains silent. Suddenly, the peace is broken as a green sauropod aggressively harasses the pink waitress, demanding she keep him company. The other customers watch nervously, too afraid to intervene as the waitress cries for help. The green thug gets even more handsy, telling her to just have a drink with them as she desperately pleads with him. And then, a heavy foot stomps the ground. A fearsome, red-maned T-Rex appears, telling everyone to shut up and eat, or they might just become the food themselves. The other dinosaurs tremble in terror, recognizing the infamous inn wreckers, the Jungu brothers. The patrons confirm their identity by the scars over their eyes, whispering about how they harass waitresses until inns are forced to close. But a calm voice cuts through the tension. "That's enough!" The green sauropod brother turns, demanding to know who spoke, revealing a stoic blue Triceratops who firmly states, "The lady said to stop." The red-maned T-Rex brother just scoffs, amused by the idiot who doesn't value his life. He taunts the herbivore, promising to show him the true difference in strength between them. With a furious roar, the T-Rex lunges, but the Triceratops remains perfectly calm. In a stunning display of speed, he spins and whips his tail, sending the T-Rex flying, and follows up with a devastating body slam. The red-maned T-Rex crashes hard into the ground, utterly defeated. His brother can only cry out in shock. Realizing he's completely outmatched, the green sauropod immediately starts begging for their lives. But the blue Triceratops coldly tells him he's apologizing to the wrong person. He instantly gets the message and turns to the pink waitress, groveling for forgiveness. She agrees to forgive him, but on one condition: he has to help out at the inn. Overjoyed, the green sauropod tearfully thanks her, but her sweet demeanor vanishes as she ominously welcomes him to the family. His relief turns to pure terror. As the blue Triceratops departs, the grateful patrons try to ask for his name, but he leaves as silently as he came. He says his name is not worth spreading, just that a disciple of Just a Sword acted righteously. A narrator explains the philosophy of the martial world, a path of strength and chivalry. This world, the Jungu, is not a place, but a legacy left by those who walk this path. And even millions of years ago, this martial world existed. But our great hero is internally complaining about being called old, revealing his name is Byak Row, and he's only 16. As he walks, he notices a group of dinosaurs approaching him. One of them, a horned T-Rex, points him out to a stern-looking dinosaur in a bonnet, identifying him as the martial artist from the inn. The bonnet dino calls out to Byak Row, asking him to stop for a moment. She introduces her group as martial artists from the Jeokunmun, an affiliate of the Wudang sect, and asks which sect he belongs to. Byak Row coolly replies that while they may be from a proper sect, he is simply a disciple of Just a Sword. The Jeokunmun members are baffled by his answer, muttering, "Just a sword?" The horned T-Rex erupts, accusing Byak Row of mocking their sect and working for the infamous Black Scale clan. The bonnet dino silences him with a sharp "enough" and demands that Byak Row come along with them. As her subordinates move in to grab him, she adds a cold warning, "Please do not resist." But Byak Row has no intention of complying, stomping his foot and unleashing a technique, Gungshin Tanyong. He shoots into the sky, and in a flash, he lands right past the stunned group, leaving them in the dust. Absolutely livid, the bonnet dino screams, "Get him! Don't let him escape!" But it's far too late. Byak Row is already a streak of blue lightning disappearing down the road. He suddenly skids to a halt, realizing with annoyance that in his haste, he lost his hat. There it is, his precious hat, lying abandoned on the dusty road. But before he can go back for it, a massive foot crushes the ground right beside it. Blocking his path are 3 more warriors, introducing themselves as the Jeokunmun's Red 3 Stars, Otega, Gangya, and Masu. Byak Row is absolutely enraged, but not because he's outnumbered. He screams, "What the hell? That's the precious hat my master bought me." Masu scoffs, "Who cares about a stupid hat?" and lunges forward, demanding he draw his sword. But Byak Row is already in motion, effortlessly dodging the vicious claw strike. The force of the blow sends him flying, much to the shock of the other 2 disciples. Seeing his attack miss, Masu immediately calls for a coordinated assault. "Formation strike!" Otega roars in agreement, and Gangya lets out a piercing shriek, readying his spear. Byak Row recognizes their intent, a combination attack. His eye flares with intensity. In that case, He moves first, using Ortega's face as a springboard. He twists through the air, aiming to strike before their combo is even complete. Masu watches in disbelief, realizing Byak Row used his ally as a foothold. With a single thought, Byak Row declares, "I'll break it." And he does, delivering a vicious kick that sends Gang Ya reeling. The sheer force of the blow sends the spear dino crashing into the canyon wall. In a matter of seconds, the formation is shattered, and Masu is left standing alone. Masu is completely frozen in shock. Before he can react, Byak Row flips effortlessly over his head. Ortega is speechless. Byak Row lands perfectly, his eyes glowing with a menacing red light. Stammering, Ortega demands, "Just who are you?" But Byak Row fires back, "I'm the one who wants to ask that. Why did you attack me?" Ortega reveals their motive. The aura from his martial arts is eerily similar to the infamous Heavenly Demon's swordsmanship. Heavenly Demon! The name is completely foreign to Byak Row. The Heavenly Demon was a legendary figure who stood at the pinnacle of martial arts, dreaming of destroying the entire martial world. It took the combined might of the 7 great sects to stop him, and even after their tremendous sacrifice, his body was never found. Legends say he will one day return, a lingering darkness drifting through the martial world. He was the very embodiment of fear itself. But the story means nothing to Byak Row, who swears he's never heard the name before. Ortega is furious, finding it preposterous that a martial artist wouldn't know of the Heavenly Demon, and declares he cannot stand by. Suddenly a new voice cuts in, mocking the Jeokunman members for getting beaten by what she calls a cheap knockoff. Ortega recognizes her in shock. "Lady Bongchan?" This is Guiga Chungeum, the young lady of Bongchan Palace, and she couldn't resist intervening when she saw the Wudang sect losing so pathetically. Her words are strangely affecting them, and Masu realizes she's using Kunlun's sound art to confuse and pressure her opponents. But Byak Row has heard enough. "Don't insult my master's teachings with your flippant attitude." Unfazed, Lady Bongchan declares that she will verify his connection to the Heavenly Demon herself by crossing swords. Byak Row's anger boils over. With a wicked laugh, Lady Bongchan dares him to draw his sword and attack. She doesn't wait for an answer, lunging at him in a blur of motion. Her first strike smashes into the ground, but Byak Row is already moving. His focus is absolute. He deflects a blindingly fast flurry of attacks, the air itself seeming to shatter around them. Byak Row is stunned by her power, realizing she's as strong as his senior disciple, and that the martial world is far vaster than he imagined. Lady Bongchan scoffs at his defense, calling him a pathetic knockoff of the Heavenly Demon before preparing her next move. She channels her power through her stance and launches forward, sneering that he's nothing but a third-rate fighter. A flash of red, Byak Row is suddenly bombarded by a storm of invisible blows. The attacks are too fast to see, and each one lands with bone-jarring force. But even as the blows rain down, a fierce determination burns in his eyes. He's adapting to her speed, and in that split second he sees an opening. He lunges forward, grabbing onto Lady Bongchan's arm midair. He's got her, or does he? His stubby Triceratops fingers can't get a proper hold. Lady Bongchan looks down in disgust, completely misreading the situation and calling him a pervert. Before he can explain, she slams him into the ground with tremendous force. The impact kicks up a massive cloud of dust. But through the dust, Byak Row pushes himself up, bruised but undeterred. Lady Bongchan scoffs, calling his judgment third-rate for daring to continue. But Byak Row has had an epiphany, claiming he's figured out her secret technique. The unpredictable attacks, the impossible number of hits. It all made sense now. He looks her dead in the eye and declares, "Miss, you're not just one person." She recoils, calling him creepy, and in a flash, a second figure appears beside her. They're the twin sisters of Bongchan Palace. Byak Row explains his simple, yet brilliant deduction. He noticed the different positions of their beauty marks. One sister has a mark just below her right eye, while the other's is below her left. They're stunned he caught such a small detail amidst their onslaught. Impressed, one of the twins calls him a cheap knockoff Heavenly Demon, saying this will be even more fun now. But before they can resume, a new voice commands them to stop. A massive pterosaur descends from the sky. It's Unhueriyong, Byak Row's master, and she's furious he's playing around instead of running his errand. She lands with authority. Byak Row can only stammer master, while the twins mockingly call her another third-rate rookie. Unhueriyong grabs her disciple by the face, scolding him for using martial arts in public. But the Bongchan twins aren't about to let them leave, suggesting all 4 of them have some fun. Unhueriyong's eyes narrow. If they won't let them leave peacefully, then she has no choice. She digs her claws into the ground and makes a run for it. She snatches Byak Row and flies away, leaving the twins utterly bewildered. Left in the dust, the Bongchan twins can only mock their cowardly escape, calling it pathetic and third-rate. With the immediate threat gone, the bonnet dino from Jeokunmun finally steps forward to formally greet the powerful young ladies. But the twins are in no mood for pleasantries, immediately tearing into the sect for only showing up after the fight was over. Lady Bongchan cuts to the chase, revealing they came to discuss a grave matter, the calamity of the 5 directions. However, after witnessing their pathetic display, she openly questions if Jeokunmun is even capable of handling the task. Otega, already beaten and humiliated, erupts in anger at the blatant disrespect. In an instant, one of the twins is perched on his head, asking if they should really be showing courtesy to ants. He's completely frozen in fear. The bonnet dino quickly steps in to de-escalate, apologizing and explaining they're on edge because the Black Scale clan is on the move. She tries to appeal to their sect's past glory, hoping the twins will recognize the spirit Jeokunmun once had when facing the heavenly demon. One of the twins mockingly compares the Jeokunmun to the spirited young hero from earlier, but her sister tells her to cut the commentary and focus on their mission. But the first twin is completely flustered, her inner monologue revealing she's very bothered by how Byak Row's rough hands felt on her foot with such subtle consideration. Ignoring their bickering, the bonnet dino simply says she understands and will guide them to the Jeokunmun sect. Meanwhile, high above the clouds, Unwaryung carries her disciple through the evening sky. She finally breaks the silence, scolding Byak Row for using his unrefined skills and revealing how worried she was when she saw him injured. Byak Row looks away, justifying his actions by saying he couldn't just stand by while a weak dinosaur was being bullied. He then starts complaining that he could have handled it himself if his arms weren't so short, questioning why she even taught him swordsmanship. Unwaryung sharply reprimands him, reminding him of her teaching not to be obsessed with form. A sword is a tool, and what matters is how you use it. But Byak Row throws a tantrum, shouting that he doesn't want to hear it. He turns away, full-on sulking with tears in his eyes as a status window helpfully points out he's going through puberty. The flight home is filled with an incredibly awkward silence as Byak Row continues to sulk. They soon arrive at their home in the remote western peak of the Rocky Mountains. Deep within Souku Valley, they enter a hidden cave dwelling. The moment they're inside, Byak Row storms off and slams a door shut. Unwaryung is left speechless by his childish behavior. Peeking out, Byak Row offers the lamest excuse imaginable, claiming the wind slammed the door. Unwaryung takes a deep breath, telling herself to stay calm in the face of this teenage rebellion. She turns and walks down the hall. But she's practically vibrating with suppressed fury. With a final, decisive click, she locks the door, grounding her disciple for his insolence. Inside, Unwaryung peeks into a room that can only be described as a shrine to Byak Row himself. She collapses, completely disarmed by his teenage antics, muttering about his lame excuse. She knows he's in the wrong, but she can't help but think he's just getting cuter every day. But her fondness quickly turns to cold, hard fear as she realizes the danger he's in. A dark thought crosses her mind. Maybe she should cripple his martial arts just to keep him safe forever. Meanwhile, at the Jeokunmun sect, a furious shout echoes through the halls. Elder Hajin of Jeokunmun looms over the others, demanding to know if the reports he's hearing are true. The bonnet dino confirms that the boy claimed to be the disciple of someone called Justin a Sword. The elder begins to tremble, realizing their sect's silence has led to a terrible outcome. Because Just a Sword, he reveals, is one of the titles of the legendary heavenly demon. The bonnet dino stammers in disbelief. The heavenly demon? An emergency drum echoes through the sect's headquarters. Elder Hajin gives a grave order. Send an urgent message to the Murim Alliance immediately. As a signal fire blazes to life, his voice explains the terrifying stakes. If a descendant of the heavenly demon is alive, the Jungu will once again... You face an age of chaos. And it seems that age is already dawning as we're introduced to Gomgang Biwang, the immortal monster of the Central Plains, a creature of truly colossal scale. In the desolate west, there is Gengshi Yokbyong, the plague demon of the western poison lands, and from the east, Manchung Giwang, the swarm king of the eastern sea, a storm of blood, Pachyon Georang, the rising dragon of the flowing river, and Myeongsepeha, the black dragon of the northern sky. Once again, the world must face these legendary monsters. And as Unwaryung watches over her sleeping disciple, she knows that one day he will be the one to face them. Her hand trembles and clenches. Her terrifying solution? Cripple his martial arts and keep him safe. Forever. But what is this power she fears him using? It is an invisible force that flows through nature. In the martial world, they call it ki. Through breathing and mental focus, this power is refined and drawn into the body, where it's stored in a place called the dantian. This accumulated power, known as internal energy, can then be released explosively, making the dantian a martial artist's very life. So when the dantian is destroyed, it's like a water jar shattering into pieces. All the internal energy you've ever accumulated is lost, and you can never build it up again. At that moment, the path of martial arts is completely and irrevocably severed. Eunhwa-ryung's hand glows, ready to enact this terrible fate, but she stops. She can't bring herself to do it. Tucking him in, she realizes, he's my last remaining junior, and he's not a child anymore. She knows he'll just keep leaving the safety of their home in the future. A new resolve forms. Instead of crippling him, she'll teach him the basics, just enough to preserve his own life. The next morning arrives, and master and disciple share a surprisingly peaceful meal. Still a little sullen, Byak Row picks at his food. He quietly finishes, offering a simple, "Thank you for the meal." But as he gets up to leave, his master tells him to wait. She presents a massive platter of fruit, explaining she found it for a good price on her way home. Byak Row is completely floored. He devours the fruit with pure delight, excitedly telling Eunhwa-ryung she has to try some. Then, his tone shifts as he calls out to his master. Touched by her gesture, Byak Row sincerely apologizes for his childish behavior the day before, promising to be more mature and listen to her from now on. His sudden maturity is so jarring that Eunhwa-ryung's first thought is, should I have crushed his dantian after all? Shaking off the absurd thought, she finally tells him, after breakfast, I'll teach you martial arts, leaving her disciple completely stunned. Byak Row is ecstatic, questioning why she's only teaching him now after all this time. Eunhwa-ryung states her reasoning bluntly. Since he's going to fight anyway, she might as well teach him enough to survive. With a determined look, she announces their destination. That place. And so, they set off, with Byak Row beginning a grueling climb up a seemingly endless mountain staircase while his master flies ahead. He finally reaches an ancient, dilapidated gate where Eunhwa-ryung is waiting. Completely exhausted, Byak Row asks if they've finally arrived. "We're here," she says, leaving him utterly confused. He looks around, spotting a structure built into the side of the mountain and questioning if this is really the training ground. Eunhwa-ryung explains that this is the real Souku Valley, which once served as lodging for visitors. She urges him to hurry inside before they lose the daylight, and Byak Row eagerly agrees. As they enter, she reveals this was their sect's original training ground, chosen for its remote location, far from any prying eyes. Eunhwa-ryung gets straight to business, asking about his external skills, and Byak Row proudly declares he's practiced her techniques every single day. She seems skeptical, wondering if he's only practiced techniques for the last 10 years, knowing that wouldn't be enough. But Byak Row reveals his insane daily regimen: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-lie run, every day for a decade. And if he had any time left over, through the harshest winters, he pushed himself even harder. He'd add another 10,000 punches with gratitude. Impressed by his simple yet solid dedication, Eunhwa-ryung decides to put him to the test. The challenge is simple. Stay inside the circle she drew and dodge the stones she throws. Steeling himself, Byak Row accepts. His master's first official lesson is about to begin. With a confident smirk, Eunhwa-ryung accepts his resolve. Then let's see what you can do. In an instant, a stone whips past Byak Row's head with incredible speed. He's immediately swarmed by a barrage of projectiles. His eyes widen, they're fast. But he's faced faster, recalling the lightning-quick attacks of Lady Bongchan. Using that experience, Byak Row begins to move, expertly weaving through the storm of stones. Eunhwa-ryung's eyes narrow, impressed by his disciple's agility. Not bad. In that case, she decides, I'll stop holding back. She unleashes a single stone with enough force to create a massive shockwave. Byak Row is completely stunned by the power. Meanwhile, back at Bongchan Palace, Lady Bongchan looks at her hand in disbelief. Her Kunlun jade bracelet has shattered. She muses that her encounter with that young hero was more intense than she thought, much to her sister's annoyance. Her expression hardens. She notes that if the slow Murim Alliance is already moving, then the heavenly demon's reputation is truly fearsome. She reasons that since the Alliance is already in chaos from the calamity of the Five Directions, they'll want to handle this new threat immediately. She chuckles, thinking of the shadowy assassins they'll surely unleash. In fact, she's a little jealous of all the attention Byak Row is getting. With a smirk, she wonders if the boring martial world is finally about to get interesting. Her twin sister, however, looks on with concern, thinking only of young Master Byak Row. And back on the training grounds, the shockwave from Eunhwaryong's attack finally hits. Eunhwaryong watches intently. Byak Row is sent reeling, completely dazed by the sheer force of the blow. Her judgment is swift and harsh. Failed. She scolds him, yelling that he was supposed to dodge, not get hit, calling him a failure. But Byak Row protests, remembering that she specifically told him to try and catch one of the stones. Caught in her own lie, Eunhwaryong realizes she got carried away and went all out by mistake. Quickly changing the subject, she declares his basics are solid and moves on to weapon technique, ignoring his confused expression. Handed a simple branch, Byak Row recalls his master's lesson. Don't be obsessed with form. But he admits that no matter what, he can't seem to put any real strength into his sword. He explains that with his clumsy hands, he instinctively relies on his horns for defense, making swordsmanship feel unnatural. Eunhwaryong scolds him for whining, saying that simply remembering her words without understanding them is not a real teaching. As a teary-eyed Byak Row tries to protest, his master simply tells him to follow her. She then makes a stunning declaration. She's going to show him their sect's secret manual. She leads him deep into a desolate canyon. Looking around nervously, Byak Row asks where they are. Eunhwaryong lands and turns the question back on him. Byak Row's gaze falls upon the canyon walls, which are covered in countless markings. He realizes they aren't just rock patterns, but glowing traces of sword strikes and impacts forming a distinct, repeating design. His eyes gleam with insight as he deduces this is a place where techniques have been practiced relentlessly. He sees visions of the past. The endless repetition, the countless strikes, leaving their traces on the very stone itself. He sees visions of disciples, young and old, practicing the same forms. Tens of thousands, hundreds of millions of repetitions, all carving their intent into the canyon walls. That's right, Eunhwaryong confirms, explaining the traces were left by her and his senior brothers. She declares that the valley itself is their secret manual, and it will show him how to truly train. Byak Row nods, finally understanding. But as Eunhwaryong casually turns to leave for some shopping, Byak Row calls out to her. With a troubled expression, he finally asks the question weighing on his mind. Master, are you really the heavenly demon? Eunhwaryong pauses, her gaze unreadable, and turns the question back on him. What do you think? Byak Row admits he doesn't know. He can't believe it, because his only memories are of her kindness. The answer to that, she says cryptically, is also something you will find within this secret manual. As she soars away, Eunhwaryong's final words of advice echo through the canyon. Don't be obsessed with form. The scene shifts to a bustling town market. It's a lively day, filled with busy shoppers. But a mysterious figure in a veiled hat quietly browses the stalls, drawing murmurs from the crowd. The shopkeeper welcomes her and she asks for some travel snacks, and something sweet, adding that kid likes it. Beneath the veil, it's none other than Eunhwaryong, but she's not unnoticed. From the shadows, two figures confirm her identity as the one from the wanted poster, impressed by her ability to conceal her energy. One of them looks at the crude drawing, noting the condition for the bounty is capture alive. His partner lets out a sinister laugh, realizing that just means they have to leave her breathing, in whatever state they choose.